In this video, I'm going to discuss injecting collections in Spring, and I've written an article on this already on my blog justamonet.com, and I will link this article in the show notes. You can directly visit the blog too. The main thing is that if we have any public collection that we want to use, like set of countries or list of names or map of symbols, then the plain old Java way to do that would be to create a public static final collection and use them in our class by calling the class like public collection dot countries, public collection dot names, public collection dot symbols. The alternative to this would be to create a collection as a bean in Spring and inject it whenever or wherever needed. How can we do that? And if we want to inject list, set, or map, we can do this using Spring, and here is how we can do that. Let us take a look at configuration class. We can create a configuration class called as collection configuration, or it can be any class. It need not end with configuration. I usually end it with configuration to know that this is the class of type configuration. This is just something that I follow, but it is not strict. You can create the class and annotate at configuration, and this add configuration should be Spring Framework Context Annotation Configuration. Then you can write your method like public set of string countries and define all countries in your set and return a set over here. Now be careful, whenever you return any object from here, it should be immutable form of object. If it is not immutable, then somebody who has access to this object can mutate it and everyone will see that copy. Be careful of those kind of things. To define the countries, we have annotated the method with @bean, and we have named this Spring managed bean as all countries, which returns set of string. @bean names, and it returns a list of string. And the third is @bean special symbols, that returns map of symbols. Now the question is, how can we go ahead and inject them in our class where we need it? You don't need to inject this configuration class and call dot countries method. You can just inject set and countries and you will have access to those countries. There are few different ways to do it, and this is important. If somebody is using Java X inject annotations, they can use @inject and @named, because the name of the country is all countries, and declare the object like this: private set of string countries. Somebody may be using like this, right? Only Spring annotations, auto-wired and qualifier. Auto-wired X same as @inject in Java X spec, and @qualifier, and here is the name called as all countries. I would expect you to not do something like this, @inject and @qualifier, because @inject comes from Java X library and @qualifier comes from Spring library. You are mixing and matching annotations of two different libraries. Either follow Java X or follow Spring framework. Don't follow both of them, because this may cause confusion, as in code somewhere people may use @inject and @qualifier, somewhere they may end up using @inject @named, or somewhere they may end up using @autowired @qualifier, just to try to maintain the sanity in the code. Now Spring provides three different ways of injection: constructor injection, Saturn injection, and field injection. My favorite is constructor injection, and that is the first one that I am showing you over here. The way to inject these three beans in this class is like this. This class itself should be marked as @named, or it can be @component. And what you can do is you can mark the constructor as @inject, which means that this is the class where injected values will come, and those values will be set of countries, list of names, and map of symbols. And see, we have used @named, all countries, names, and special symbols, and here is where we are accepting those values, and then we are just printing it out. Whenever you call these methods, it is going to go ahead and print these statements. Then Saturn injection. I would not ask you to go ahead and use Saturn injection, but it is always better to understand what it really means. In Saturn injection, you can name the method anything that you want, and you can have the parameter of the bean type, and you can annotate the method with at inject and at named with all countries. Now this method is eligible for injection. This method is going to accept something in injection, and it will accept something called as all countries, and the type of all countries will be string, and then you are just accepting those values inside the class. This object will have the context, that is the countries, names and symbols, and we'll just print it out. The reason I asked you to not use Saturn injection is Saturn injection is done only once all the constructors are initialized, and that particular object, now that object will have these values. This object of this class, the scope of this class in Spring is singleton. Spring will go ahead and create an object. After that only it will go ahead and do this Saturn injection, because Saturn, these method injections are based on the object instance. Then only it will accept those fields. Once the object is created, then it will start assigning the values. Instead, in constructor injection, it will do as soon as the constructor comes into the picture, it will go ahead and initialize your object in that state. It will not initialize the object just in blank state and then start putting values, but your object will be initialized in that state in constructor injection. Moving on with the third form of injection, field injection. Again, I would still prefer constructor injection over field injection, but field injection is much more simpler. The way to inject collections in field injection class would be just annotate the class with at named, and whatever object that needs to be injected, you can just specify the collection type and the variable name, and at inject and at named, same thing, all countries, names, special symbols, and then I've just printed it out. We have to now write the test. We have to verify whether our code was or not. Let me take you to Spring Boot application, and I will show you how I've written the test. This is the test class, collection injection test, and I've injected all the collection classes: constructor injection, field injection and Saturn injection. And the way we are going to use is, we are going to use JUnit for class runner, which means this is the indication that we will be using JUnit to run the test. And add context configuration, what this does is, we tell that in test, this is how you have to load all the beans, and those beans are defined in test config class. Let's go to test config class. Test config class is marked as add configuration class, and add component scan com.justamon, which means that it is going to scan this base package and get all the beans recursively. Anything that exists inside this package plus inside all of these packages, it will just bring all the beans. We don't have to use any mockito and other things like that. Here is constructor injection test. We'll go ahead and run this thing. Let's go to console, and here is the output: Canada, Netherlands, United States, France. This was countries. These are the names: Ava, Emma, Benjamin and Bruce. And symbols here: hash, dollar, percentage, asterisk and tilde. This was constructor injection. Let's try with field injection. Same thing, countries, names and symbols. Let's try Saturn injection. Same thing. This was all on injecting collections, but needs may arise where you have to inject some custom bean. Custom bean can be some custom class, and you have to inject that particular class type in list, set or map or something like that. You can do that also. Let's say you have bean, some class, and the class name is bean class, and it accepts a string as a constructor argument. So this particular class itself is not a injected object, not right now, but let's see what we can do with it. After that, I created bean class configuration, add configuration, and I created 3 beans out of it: bean class 1, bean class 2 and bean class 3. All these 3 classes has string parameter. First class has string parameters value as Jon Snow, second bean has Sansa Stark, and third has Arya Stark. Now the interesting part about this is, when I try to inject this bean class, Look at this bean class. 3 beans are created over here. 3 different beans are created. And if I write something like this, let's say this class, bean class injection, and I annotate this class as, annotate the constructor as at inject and the class as at named, and I write list of bean class, bean classes. This is the same object, bean class, and this is the same object. Spring will automatically take all the 3 beans and put it in your list. Here, you will get access for it over here, and you can use it over here. This is what Spring does for you. You don't even need to worry about it. Now, what you can do is, you don't want list, you want where args, where variable arguments. Then you can say bin class dot 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 bin classes. It will do that also for you. So you don't need to worry about that. Now, another thing is, a need may arise where you want to sequence the beans. That means this should be loaded first, then only this one, and then only this one. What you can do is, you can order them. Order 1, order 2, and order 3. Whichever is, these are ordered, and the first that gets injected with will be the lowest value. And I think the lowest value will be integer dot mean number, mean value, and the last one that will get loaded will be integer dot max value. That is how the ordering is done. This will be the first one, this will be the second one, and this will be the third one. And test is okay, this is the test, but let us again go back to Eclipse and I'll show you the test again. Here is the bean injection test. It is same as the previous one. Run with Spring JUnit runner, and context configuration is test config class, which does component scan of all the beans. That's it. And we are just going to inject this class that needs to be tested, and we say print beans. Let's go inside this class and let us find this class configuration. See, the first bean that will get injected is Jon Snow, second is Sansa Stark, and third is Arya Stark. Let's test it. Jon Snow, Sansa Stark, and Arya Stark. Now let me play around with this one. Let me make this 3 and let me make this 2. Resulting output should be Jon Snow, Arya Stark, and then Sansa Stark. Jon Snow, Arya Stark, and Sansa Stark, because the priority of Sansa Stark went down, whereas the priority of Arya Stark came up, just like in the series. That is it on injecting collections in Spring using annotations and bean ordering. Thank you very much.